Hi again. Before we move on, I'd like to just stop for a moment because it might be that you have found this video and you are not an experienced developer, and a lot of this stuff will seem like magic to you. It's like, wow, is that how easy programming is? Is that how easy you can do development? And you might be thinking to yourself, well, any idiot can do that, and we can, I can be a programmer in 10 minutes. And because a lot of the stuff that we have seen so far isn't really impressive in terms of programming. It's more to show you some simple stuff, really, or how quickly you can, get the simple stuff up and running. I can tell you, though, that this certainly isn't a simple thing, and that's actually one of the reasons why, a lot of projects fail, is that people think it's going to be a lot easier than it actually is going to be. So if you are watching this and you think this is massively impressive, chances are you may not be as experienced as you might need to be. And sadly, at least in these videos, I'm not here to help you with that. You're, of course, welcome to watch whatever I publish and enjoy that for what it is. But what we're going to do now is we're going to start looking deeper into the details. And then this is sort of where stuff stops being, point and click impressive. This is where we start looking at code. We start looking at the various models. We start looking at databases. And it's not going to be as, I don't know, at least in my opinion, it's still massively impressive, but on a different level, right? So far we've been more or less, a Photoshop version of development. You're basically just clicking and pointing and dragging some stuff, and suddenly I have an application. There's far more to it than what you're seeing on the surface. So with that said, let's move on. We just completed our very basic leads collecting application, which will allow us to, log on to some kind of service and, create new leads. That's how far we've come so far. And but there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and we need to look deeper into that for a moment. And there are several components in an ASP.NET application like this, and I again like to show them to you. I'm not going to in any great detail teach them to you. There's some really good videos. So if you go to www.asp.net, Microsoft has some videos there which are more aimed at teaching you all of this stuff. I just want to show you stuff, and I'm going to I'm not going to create a course in any of this, so it'll be a superficial view of stuff. We're going to look at these various components, and since we have this create CHTML page up, let's start here. Let's start with the views that are here. So first of all, I'm just going to close these others for a brief moment here. You'll notice that this has been automatically created for us. It's in the, if you go over to the right here, in the Solution Explorer. We'll just close up all of the other things here. We'll focus on the views here. So you'll see that there are 5 views when we use the default scaffolding of a new controller. It'll create 5 views, and then, as you saw, one of them has a bug where it duplicates a line, which causes some problems. But there are these 5 views that are available, basically basic CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete, and an index view. Now these views are, as you can see, they're called CSHTML, and that means that these pages are Razor pages, and Razor is one of the view engines that are available in ASP.NET MVC. It's the benefit of it is that it is a very lightweight, and it's very fast, and it feels much more like working with HTML than does the traditional ASP.NET web forms engine. right? So that's why I like working with this when I'm working with MVC. But the cool thing is that these two aren't necessarily the only ones available, because the view engines are totally replaceable. So if you have a really nice view engine, or you have a language that you want to use, or you want to write for some kind of other templating language, you can actually create your own view engine as well and just plug it in here. Again, not going to show it to you, just wanted to point out that these engines are interchangeable. You can replace them. You can even use some of them some of the time and others at other time, right? So basically, as you can see, looks very much like or to some extent, an HTML page with some kind of markup here. First of all, you notice at the top here, there's some @ signs, and basically these @ signs indicate to Racer that this is code in some way. First line here basically tells the view what type of model we're looking at, right? So we created this lead model that we had earlier, which had an ID, and we had a name, and we had an email. So this basically tells the view what class we are looking at here. You can see here there's some brackets here. This is again just saying to the view engine that here I have some C# code, please run this for me, and then it breaks out into default HTML. Same thing here. Here's an @ sign. Some code is happening here. Using, again, just don't worry about the C# code or the .NET syntax of this in any way. Basically, what this is doing is it handles the disposing of this form that we're creating. So don't worry about that. Most of the time, it's there's just certain patterns that you follow after a while. And in this case, what it says is basically just start getting an HTML form up for us where we can do something. You'll also notice there's an HTML anti-forgery token, which takes care of a lot of the cross-site scripting problems that we may have. Again, not going to go into the details on that. You can decorate some classes and some methods in order to take advantage of that. Again, don't think I'm going to do that, at least in this video. And then you see we break back into HTML, so we can basically switch back and forth on everything here. And most of this should be more or less familiar to you. But as you can see, or one benefit of this is that this isn't more of a programming challenge than that you can actually hand these files over to some kind of designer or something like that, and they will be perfectly capable of working with this type of code. If you sort of leave these are called HTML helpers, by the way. They allow you to do some simple stuff in Racer. You can hand this over to the designer, and they can keep working with this, right? And then with some basic training, they can even start understanding what the hell all of these other methods are, and what these classes are, and stuff like that. But basically, what you're looking at here is the form to create some stuff, right? So we're creating a lead in this example. We have a validation summary, which is nice if you have validation rules. For instance, you want to make sure that your email has an @ sign in it, or that your age is between 0 and 200, or whatever validations rules you have. You can actually decorate your classes, your model classes, to say, here's how I would like this value to be validated, and Racer and then MVC will actually put that validation in here, so you can get a nice summary here. And then you have these groups here of form input fields, where you're basically saying, I'd like to have a label for the model name. Right, so whatever we put as the model name, we can change that again in the classes. I want to put here, right, and then something will come out. We'll look into some more details on how that works. We can even, as you can see here, decorate some additional properties here. In this case, to add some Bootstrap formatting and some Bootstrap CSS classes to make sure this looks nice and aligns in the grid system and stuff like that. Same thing here. As you can see, now we have the two. If you don't know, the Bootstrap grid system consists of 12 rows. You basically define how many, or not 12 columns. You basically define how many columns you would like these HTML entities to have with these col-md-2. So they should add up to 10 or to 12, and then here we have the last 10 of them. Now, again, new editor. Basically, you notice that we don't need to say anything like, well, this is going to be a text box, or this is going to be a input type equals text, or something like that. The only thing we need to say is that, well, I would like an editor for the model name. Right. And this in this case is going to be a lead. Based on this, MVC will actually understand that, well, if you are adding, in our case, a string, we want to capture a string, then you'd like to get an input type equals text, and it'll create that for us, right? If you have something else like a date or other types of data, it'll basically change accordingly, right? And you can also obviously override this if you like to have wider boxes or smaller boxes, or say that, well, I don't care if it's a date, I still want to have an input type equals text, etc. You can override that also on the class level. But basically, this is all you need to add in order to get one of these editors. And the same thing with the validation message. You just say, well, here is where I would like to have the validation message for the model name, right? In this case, the lead name. So if we had a validation rule saying that your name should be more than 2 characters long, this is where that message would come up if they didn't add a more than a 2-character length on that. So again, similar thing, because they're both strings, these are actually going to be extremely similar. Here we have the email, and here at the end we actually have a input type equals submit, which will then be the button at the end where we that we click to create something. Now, there's some other things here also that are interesting to pay attention to. We have, again, notice that when we have this at HTML, they're called HTML helpers, and they're called helpers because they help you, do something. So in this case, what we want is an action link, which will going to take us back to the list. Now, the problem in some cases is that we may not always know, this is something we do on a regular basis. We create backlinks, we create forward links, or navigate to the same things or stuff like that. Rather than actually replicating that code all the time, we can say, well, I want an action link, right? And then you can format that action link on a central place and basically have that come up the same every time you do that. So in this case, we're going to say that we want an action link, which is going to take us back to the list. And what's that going to do? Well, it's going to take us to the index view or index method of that controller that we're currently working on, the leads controller in this case. And then at the end, you'll see there's something called a section. Again, the @ sign tells us there's some kind of code happening here. Again, don't worry too much about the syntax and stuff like that. But what this does is that it creates or it renders a bundle of scripts that are required. We can create these bundles ourselves. They're actually created in C# code. And now we can basically say, well, please render these scripts for me. And the rendering engine will make sure that gets rendered properly, however you want to have that rendered. We can add scripts, etc. Of course we can, and stuff like that. But yeah, so those are basically this is the anatomy of a page. But you'll notice one thing here is that there's basically no layout. There's no body here. There's no head. There's no title. There's nothing like that here. And the reason for that is basically that this comes from the layouts page that that I mentioned earlier, and this is actually stored in the view start page, right? So you may remember that when we created a new controller, I'll actually show this to you now. I'll say I want to add a new controller, and we'll create something here. Doesn't really matter what it is. You'll see leave empty or use a layout page. Fine, we can use layout page. Leave empty if you set the layout page in the view start file, right? So this is now that view start file. This defines what our layout should be, right? It's done exactly like this. So if you wanted to choose a different layout, this is what you would copy and paste into your view, and now you can use a different layout for your entire page. You'll notice that it points to a particular place in our solution. It points to the views shared _ layout .cshtml. So if you now go in here and look at the shared folders, you'll see that there's actually here a layout page, and here's where you actually have all that, you know, good stuff with you know, HTML and titles and heads and stuff like that. That's defined inside here. Everything is part of this particular page, and there's actually really one thing that's important in here. Obviously, you know, we have all of this code here to create the you know, layout of the page, including more action links. They work across the board. So you know, here we have an action link as well, which links to our home page, to our about page, and to our contact page. Basically, these are then the methods or actions that we have on the controller, and this is a controller that we're using. So this last parameter here points to which controller we're going to use. So we'll explore that in the next video. And then we have some other rendering, which is called HTML partial, which renders a partial view. So again, this is the code that will allow you to show the login information, whether the user is logged on or not logged on. They'll see either a, you know, welcome user or something like that, or if they're not logged on, they'll see login or register. This is being handled by this particular view, which is, you know, down here on the right side under the shared folder. And then we have this render body thing, which is the method that we have in our layouts file to say, well, you know, whatever is going to happen, put it here. This is where the body of our page is going to be, right? So again, this is basically how a layout page works. So, and if you, as I said, wanted to create a different one, then you'd copy this page and you'd, you know, in your code somewhere, you'll have this, you know, layout equals, and then point to that layout page. So that's how easy you can create multiple layouts if you want one with, you know, no navigation, or one with some, you know, helpful text on the right side, whatever you want to do. This is where you would basically, you know, set that, and this is how you would create that in your views, right? So that's basically what I wanted to talk to you about with the Racer view engine. And as I said, just to summarize, these engines are replaceable. I'm showing you now one of them, which is really nice. I like it a lot because it's extremely lightweight. It's called Racer. You can also have the other default option, or the other major option in ASP.NET, which is ASP.NET Web Forms, which is a traditional way of building ASP.NET pages. Or you can roll your own if you like. You can override how they work. So yeah. And in the next video, I'm going to dive a bit deeper into the controllers to see how they work and how they actually figure out what the hell you're trying to do. Because, you know, so far we haven't really understood how does the framework understand what to show you when you click on a link and when you want to open a page, or when you want to create something. How is that happening? And I will look at that in the next video.